What is up, everybody? Welcome to Truth and Transparency in Idaho4. This is an all-new, never-seen-before interview. Moscow Police Department, Officer Rosinski. He had a phone conversation with witness PC. It's about a 12 to 13-minute interview. It'll kick off this live stream, and then we will be jumping into Rylene Nolan's emails in connection with the sheath, and we're going to talk about the blood on the glove. So welcome. Let's get this party started. Here it is. November 15th, 2022 at 1:49 p.m. It's a phone interview with witness PC. Officer Rosinski makes the call. Here we go. Magpie. Welcome. It's going to be interesting. Got some bombs for you today, so.
That is not a problem. I could just talk to you here on the phone. So, can you, did you have any special relationships with any of the victims or anything?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was really good friends with Kaylee.
Okay.
She was a year older than me. We were in the same chapter together, and we're pretty good friends.
Okay, so you guys are both 80?
Yes. Yeah, and then I also I knew Xana pretty well as Ethan, just from kind of the community, and I met Xana like pretty early on in my first week of college.
Okay. Are you a junior?
Yes, I am.
Okay, cool. So do you know of anybody, I know you said you were pretty close to Kaylee. Do you know of anybody that she may have associated with that could potentially have violent tendencies or be violent in any way?
All right, so we're going to talk about that really quick. Violent tendencies. Immediately going to Kaylee. And guys, now we know why. Because of the damage that Kaylee suffered compared to others.
No, I don't. I can't think of anyone.
Okay. And this question is, I mean, we're not trying to say people did this or did that. We're just trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together, just with everything that's going on. Was Kaylee ever involved in any like drugs, or do you know if she ever like partied with drugs or anything?
Not to my knowledge. I know that was, something that kind of like that has happened and stuff. I've never personally heard or seen anything related to Kaylee, if that makes sense.
What about any of the other roommates that were in the house?
No, not them personally. I know that like is something that does happen kind of like in this environment, or it has happened, but not them personally.
And you mean, are you talking
knowledge
about like just stuff that happens, like people that like just party with drugs?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I don't know, like I don't know anything of them personally.
So you've never seen Kaylee do coke or marijuana or any sort of, Xanax or any sort of party drug? You've never like seen or heard her do any of that stuff before?
No, I've never seen her. No.
Okay.
Not to my knowledge.
And what about Xana or Ethan or Maddie or any of the others?
No, not personally, no.
Okay.
Like I said, I know that.
Okay, so first thing I want to point out is that the guy does not come out asking about Kaylee's past relationship with Jack Decor. Okay. The first questions being asked by Officer Rosinski is about drugs. Okay. Who does Kaylee hang out with? Do you know of any of these people that Kaylee has ever hung out with that are like violent, have violent tendencies? Not asking about Jack Decor. okay, and about drugs. This interview was on 11/15, so within 48 hours.
Like, is something that is probably like in the same environment, but no, not them personally.
Okay. Do you know if
Right there, no, not them personally. I have not seen Kaylee doing any drugs personally. I have not seen anything of that nature. She's saying, we've heard, you hear of things, but I've never seen anything personally. So wouldn't you ask, I don't know, what have you heard when you say, like, can you give me some examples? Let's see what he does.
if drugs were ever being sold out of that house at all by any chance?
No.
Okay.
Was drugs being sold out of that house? Where are they getting this from? Think about this. Within 48 hours, all girls live in this house. All females live in this house. Okay. What was in this house? What was found in this house? There's been no person, no interview that we have come across yet where somebody was interviewed and said, hey, I'll give you guys the truth. I'll tell you everything, but I don't want to be getting in trouble. Okay, what do you mean by that? Well, if I was to, let's say, hypothetically speaking, buy drugs out of that house, I'm not going to be going down for, buying illegal substances, right? So if you want me to be honest with you, I'm going to need something in return because I'm not going to tell you that I'm doing illegal activity, right? Right. Now, so within the first 48 hours, we have a list here. You can go look at the reports. You can see the reports of the dates. And within these first 48 hours, where and why would detectives or officers be asking if drugs are being sold out of that house? Why did they think that? It's not even just that these people were doing drugs, were they buying drugs? Were they doing drugs? Would they party with it on the weekends? No. This is straight up. Do you know if they sell drugs out of that house? Now go back to what Payne said. Payne talks about, believe it or not, the rumor mill is where we get our leads. The rumor mill. You guys, but the rumors have to come from somebody saying, hey, this is what I heard. I heard X, Y, and Z. Those would be coming from undocumented reports. Catch my drift? Those would be coming from somebody that's talking to people that they're not documenting it. Period. They have not gotten into anybody's phones yet. They haven't been able to go through them. Or at least that's what they're claiming.
When was the last time you spoke or saw Kaylee?
I saw her when she was at Grub Truck with Maddie and with her and Maddie.
Okay.
I spoke to Kaylee when she was after she had ordered, when she was waiting for her food.
Okay, and how was Kaylee's demeanor at that time?
She was good. She we kind of just had a light conversation, just like about what we were, but she seemed really happy. Her and Maddie were laughing.
Okay, did they say what their plans were after they were at the Grub Truck, like where they were going or anything?
No, they didn't. No.
Okay, you said you spoke to Maddie too, or was just Maddie just kind of there?
No, I saw Maddie. I didn't have a conversation with her. She just was standing like with Kaylee.
Okay. I
only actually had a conversation with Kaylee.
Okay. Did they seem intoxicated at all, or?
I didn't ask, but I think a little bit. And I know that she had come from the club, I think, 'cause my friend also told me she was there with her. But not anything like extremely where she was not able, like she didn't know where she was. So she
nothing out of the normal.
Coherent. She wasn't like stuttering on her words or anything like that.
Okay, so she wasn't like like stumbling or slurring her words or
No,
like not
wasn't.
making sense or anything like that?
No, yeah, she was like coherent, like understood what she was. She wasn't like slurring or stumbling over her words at all.
Okay. And did they come to the grub truck with anybody else?
I didn't see them show up to grub truck because I came after she was there. She had already ordered by the time that I was there.
Okay, so you showed up after her?
I did. Yes, I showed up afterwards,
Okay.
and I only spoke to her for a little while. But I did watch I watched back just to see in the video because there's like a security kind of video at the grub truck.
Are you speaking about the Twitch stream?
Yeah.
Okay, and what did you see on that?
I saw that someone kind of had showed up the same time as her. I just tried to look back to see if it was someone that I recognized, because I didn't see anyone that I recognized standing with Maddie and Kaylee when I spoke to them.
Okay.
But I didn't recognize. It kind of looks like someone had showed up with them, but I didn't recognize them.
Okay, so you don't know who that individual was?
No, I don't.
Okay, you've never... Did anybody say they recognized him?
No, we were all trying, like, some of my friends and I were speaking on it and trying to figure that out, because my friend who was with Kaylee at the club said that there was someone that was, like, kind of concerning, but she had no clue who he was, and so we weren't able to figure out who that was.
Okay.
Okay, so PC here, Peyton. She is the person that talks to Kaylee at the grub truck. All right, her friend was actually one of the females that went with Maddie and Kaylee to the grub truck and was hanging out. And the person that she is referring to that was being weird at the corner club was not Jack Showalter. It was Cole. Okay. Officer Rosinski here is asking her if she knows the guy that was with Kaylee and Maddie at the grub truck. She's like, no, I don't know who he is. We asked around and nobody seemed to know who he was. Okay. Again, this is on 11/15/2022. This interview takes place.
So your friend that was at the club with Kaylee and Maddie said that there was someone concerning at the club as well, the corner club?
Yeah. This is all just information that I had heard from her, but she said there was someone that was kicked out or was a cause of concern. Like, someone was concerned because he was kind of being creepy towards Maddie.
Okay.
But I never, like, saw that, and that was all I heard.
Okay.
Because I was not present at the club.
Right.
With them.
And which friend was that said that to you?
Her name was Brittany. I believe she may have spoke or was sent, or I don't know.
Okay.
I spoke to her earlier.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, right there.
Okay, so...
Okay, right there, you can tell that somebody came into the room or had already been in the room. And this girl seems like she doesn't want to... She's only asking the questions that are... Or she's answering the questions that are being asked of her. She's being semi, like, I don't want to... I don't know if it's because she doesn't have personal knowledge and it's all, like I said, this, hey, this is just what I heard. I wasn't there, blah, blah, blah. And I wish these guys would do a better job of explaining that. Like, we just want to hear what you heard. We just tell me, okay, so you didn't see this, right? You weren't there. Okay, but this is what you heard. Okay, give me what you heard. Now, who did you hear that from? This is a quadruple homicide here. All right, there's no sugarcoating anything. And these girls and boys that are being interviewed, okay, when we're going to start to get the audios that we're going to be producing on this channel, all right, we're going to see there's a completely different, when you read something compared to, okay, hey, this is this person's a couple paragraphs report, and then they say, hey, just listen to the video, listen to the audio, all right? They're going to be night and day. But I have a problem right off the rip, like, hey, 4 people were murdered. We're not talking about drugs. We're not talking about underage drinking. We're talking about somebody killed 4 people. Okay. And so I would just think that there'd be more assertion from the cops to say, hey, and to start off that way. Like, we're not interested. We're not going to be coming at people. You know, like I've been saying, like, if there's drugs, if there's drinking. And you know who was screaming that from the rooftops? Steve Gonsalves. Steve Gonsalves, because he was hearing things. Hey, people don't want to say certain things because they don't want to get in trouble for, like I just said. So can you guys, when you speak to people, explain this? All right.
So you last saw Kaylee at the grub truck. So you said you showed up after her. She was already waiting for her food. What happened after she got her food?
I didn't exactly see like what direction. I kind of just saw her and Maddie start kind of like walking off in the direction towards her house. So kind of like back towards campus. I didn't see if she crossed the street or anything like that. She kind of like went out of my view.
Okay.
And I started talking to my friend, but yeah, she was like heading in that direction of campus.
Okay. Did you see anybody like follow her or say anything to her or anything?
I didn't when I was there, that I can remember. I was a little distracted by that point and just kind of waiting for my food. But I did in the video see someone like kind of walk in the same direction that they did after she left. But I don't remember watching him walk off when I was there.
Okay.
She's talking about Jack Showalter hoodie guy. So at this point, think about it. At this point, at 11:15, at 1:30 in the afternoon, this girl has already watched the grub truck video. All right, go back and check it out and see, when did the grub truck video make its appearance on social media? Okay, what day? Go back and see what day the grub truck was dropped on social media in terms of the YouTube worlds, in the TikTok worlds. And I'm telling you, it was after everybody on campus had already viewed that. So I think she does a really good job here of explaining, hey, when I was there, I didn't witness this, but I have since watched the Twitch video. Okay. And what I saw is when Kaylee and them left, I saw then this guy, left.
Okay. Do you know of any boys or anything that Kaylee may have hung out with?
Not really.
What? What kind of question is that? Do you know of any boys that like Kaylee might have hung out with? What?
I know, obviously, Ethan. I really don't know. I'm sure there's probably a lot of I saw her earlier in the day.
Maybe okay. So, because this guy did not clarify. Are you talking about like that day? Are you talking about like in the past week? What are you talking about here? But this girl, I think the way that she's answering this is that she thinks it's about that day. Because of her answer here. She says, well, I mean, Ethan, and I'm thinking, okay, and it's not till she says this next sentence here that she's over here thinking that you're asking about that day. All right. I mean, because your question is absolutely trash. Okay, absolutely trash. Again.
That they did after she left, but I don't remember watching him walk off when I was there.
Okay.
Here you go.
Okay. Do you know of any boys or anything that Kaylee may have hung out with?
Boys or anything? Do you know any boys or anything? Do you know any boys or girls that Kaylee was hanging out with? I mean, listen to that question. Absolutely ridiculous. Is he uncomfortable to ask if there was girls? I mean, what are you doing? Boys or any what? Or anything?
Not really. I know, obviously, Ethan. I really don't know. I'm sure there's probably a lot of, like, I saw her earlier in the day, just, like, with a bunch of friends, but I don't know, like, anyone that she personally hung out with.
Okay.
So this girl, like, wouldn't you be saying, well, she had a boyfriend for a long time, and I think they just most recently brought, you wouldn't know that? It seems like this girl doesn't know anything about Kaylee, like, at all. Wouldn't she be saying something, well, Kaylee had left the sorority, you know, really wasn't involved that much. I really didn't get to hang out with her. Like, we weren't, like, close, but I mean, we were sorority sisters. So, of course, like, if I would see her, like, hey, what's up? Like, it would just be small talk. It's very odd. Because this is somebody that they're calling. Now, think about this. They're calling her for a reason. And they're calling her because clearly Kaylee talked to her at the grub truck. So if they're asking questions like, hey, we have this grub truck video. Hey, who's this in the video? Who's this in the video? Okay, so we need to talk to this person. Okay. But my question is who are you asking that of? Who did you ask to sit down and start identifying people from the grub truck? Who did that for the police? Because I don't see that Dylan didn't do it. Maddie didn't do it. Emily didn't do it. Now, unless these people were then talked to by the FBI literally immediately that same day, we don't have any of the FBI files. But all of that stuff has to be coming from the FBI only because it is not there with Idaho State Police or Moscow Police Department.
And do you know of any, like, of her ex-boyfriends or anything?
An ex-boyfriend that went to U of I at some point, but from my knowledge, they were on pretty good terms.
Okay. And what about Maddie?
I don't know about ex-boyfriends. I wasn't super close to Maddie, but I do know that her boyfriend went to U of I and graduated.
Okay, and do you know his name or?
It's escaping me at the moment.
If you don't know it off the top of your head, it's okay.
I know I've met him before. I just can't remember his name at the moment. I'm sorry.
Okay. Was there anybody that Xana or Ethan may have hung out with of concern?
Not anyone that I can think of. No.
Okay. Is there anybody?
How about this? Why do you think this happened? What's the rumors out there? Have you heard why? Have you heard what happened?
That you can think of concern or anything like that?
Not off the top of my head, no. I was trying to think of, I was with Xana and Ethan earlier, and there was never anyone that, was cause for alarm.
You were with them earlier in the night?
Yes, yeah, I was earlier that day.
And where were you guys at?
I was with Xana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee, or kind of earlier at, an apartment. What? It was my friend's apartment. We were with quite a few people.
Okay, do you know where that apartment is?
Yeah, it's on, I actually don't know the name of the road, but
Does
it's
it have
called
a
the White
nickname?
Apartment.
The Whites?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
How old is this broad? Please tell me that she's young, because you've gone to school there for how long and you don't know that's Taylor Avenue? I find this hard to believe. Okay. I find it super hard to believe that you don't know the name Taylor Avenue. Maybe she's just shell shocked right now. She's talking. She's nervous. Like, I just can't believe that she doesn't. That's like me going to the University of Cincinnati and me not knowing McMillan, me not knowing Clifton, and that those are the streets that create this big block, okay, around campus, like the main streets. Okay. I just, no way. And then Vine Street. I mean, there is just all these years later, I can tell you this. This is so disappointing because we need to get out of our phones and people need to start paying attention. Okay. You need to know where you live. You need to know your surroundings. And this is bad. Okay. This is really, and I swear it's the phones. This is horrible. Sorry, it's my opinion.
We were just kind of hanging out with all of our friends and stuff, and I was there with Xana and spoke to her and spoke to Kaylee.
Okay.
And there's never anyone of concern that was there. It was all people that we knew.
Okay.
That were with us. There was never anyone that, like, we didn't know.
Okay. Do you have anything? No. Okay. Well, I appreciate you giving us speaking to me.
Yeah, I'm sorry I didn't have very much information.
Nope. That any information right now is helpful for us. So, yeah. If you ever have any more questions for myself, or
why was this guy assigned to ask questions? There is nothing, absolutely nothing that he got from that conversation. When I say nothing, I literally mean nothing. What did you learn new from that conversation? Absolutely nothing. Nothing. I was at the grub truck. They already knew that you talked to Kaylee. We already knew that. Okay. Why aren't you asking about what people are being like? What's the rumors going around? What have people heard? What are people thinking? Who are people saying that they think did this? Why? How about this? Why would anybody harm them? Did Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, Xana, how about what's the relationship with the roommates, like the ones that are the surviving roommates? Okay. Do you talk to Dylan or Bethany? Have you talked to Dylan and Bethany? Unbelievable. This is so, you guys, that's the end of this interview.
or just in general, you can always, or if there's something that you end up learning that you think is important to share, even if you don't, or if you don't think it's important, either way, you can always give us a call and share that information with us. Something that you may think is little might go a long way for us. So
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I will do that.
All right. Well, try to enjoy your Thanksgiving break, and thanks again for.
It's 11:15. Thanksgiving is not till the 24th. Fire this man. Fire this man. Okay. Let me pull out this report really quick. John Rosinski, 14. Worthless. Absolutely worthless. Absolutely worthless. What'd you gather from that? Absolutely pathetic. Okay. Oh my God, that's what you asked her. I can't even believe it. Why would he be doing it? Unbelievable. Okay. I just can't sit here and just be disgusted. So we're moving on to the next part of this live presentation. Guys, holy hell, let's talk about it. Last night, bombshell shit. Go back and check it out. Put it on 2x speed. We're going to bring in Hector. Hector, come on in. Oh, thanks, Anna. Thanks for having me. Hector, your voice. Okay, yeah, don't mind me. All right. Take a look. This is 11:16. Rylene's emails about the sheath. Okay. Here we go. On 11:16 at 10:12 a.m., Rylene sends out an email to 5 ISP people, the lab people. Daisy White, Taylor Machok, Jade Miller, Tina White or Waltall, and Carrie Hogan. Okay. Here it is. So she reaches out to everybody and says, I was just informed a trooper will be delivering, okay? A trooper will be delivering a knife sheath from the scene today. They are requesting DNA. Layton's, and if we see any trace, to preserve that and notify Matthew, that's Matthew Gamet, so he can arrange trace analysis. They do not, they do, see, like they do know, it's supposed to be, they do not have a suspect and are requesting this be rushed to try to develop any possible leads. Okay, this is what's being reported on 11/16. Okay. Riley already had a conversation. She's putting it in writing here and sending an email to these 5 lab personnel. Okay. They know they do not have a suspect and requesting this be rushed to try to develop any possible leads. They have been made aware we will need reference samples and major case prints from all 4 victims. That is why basically items 1 through basically 20, and then you with the sheath being number 1. So the sheath is number 1 for a reason, because that's the work they did first. That's how it got labeled number 1. And then right here, she says that we need everything from the victims. Okay. We need their blood cards. We need their, to get their DNA so that we have their extractions, the extracts, and then the fingernails, clippings. So that's what takes up and gets all the way to pretty much number 22, item 22. So you can see how this is flowing and why certain things are numbered how they are. Next, they also indicated it appears one of the victims fought back, and they have requested fingernail samples from her be collected at autopsy. I believe the autopsies are happening today or tomorrow, and my guess would be they will happen in Spokane, but I do not have confirmation on that. Okay. Then the response. That was at 10:12. So now at 10:53 a.m., Katie Dace, now it's Dace White, she responds and says, has anyone triaged this case? Someone from the lab should ensure there isn't additional evidence to submit. I'm not sure who the point of contact would be, but in general, ISP investigations needs guidance with DNA submissions. I'm not sure who the point of contact, that's POC, point of contact would be, but in general, ISP investigations needs guidance with DNA submissions. Then 11:32 a.m., 30 minutes later, Rylene. Good old Rylene. Rylene says, again, as you can see, it starts off as RE, so responding to the Moscow quadruple homicide. There's stuff that began prior to the 16th. I'm trying to get that. But here, she says, as of right now, the knife sheath is their only item of evidence. Okay. So let me explain why she's saying this. These people just went. I say these people. Idaho State Police lab personnel forensic CSI team got on a vehicle, drove down on 11/13. Once they were made aware, they were brought in. Hey, we need them to report. And so they get there around 2:30 to 4 p.m. Okay. These people know what just transpired and what they just did on not only the 13th, but also on the 14th. Okay. and if anybody was there on the 15th. Okay. And they have to be saying to themselves, what are they talking about that they only have one item? We were just there. Rylene did not go there. Okay. She's the lab manager here, but she's, on top of it, like in terms of what I think, hey, asking her team, hey, what happened? What did we do? Da, da, da. And trying to communicate. So these people, these 5 chicks who were CC'd on this email have to be saying to themselves, what are you talking about? One piece that they're just transporting this sheath. We did a hell of a lot of work there. We were there like hours, right? So because of her last email, this is why I believe Rylene writes this. Like, where's this other evidence? There's way more than a sheath. Okay. So Rylene wants to answer that and saying, as of right now, the knife sheath is their only item of evidence. They have no other evidence, is what we are being told. We have had some recent developments in the last few minutes. Bullet points. We are rolling a crime scene team up there right now. Probably, and then boom. This is Moscow Police Department's case. ISP is assisting, but Moscow is the lead. Bill Thompson at the prosecutor's office is involved and will be point of contact for PTC. Whoo, daddy. Okay, Bill. Dude. Bill in the know. Okay. I have to go back to if you're following this case from the beginning. Remember when they said, oh, Bill Thompson and the police must have had an off day and information wasn't being relayed and somehow Bill Thompson got something wrong when he's talking about something. Dude, Bill Thompson didn't get shit wrong. Okay? He is the point of contact on everything. Him and Ashley Jennings running this investigation. Straight up running it. And when I say running it, if you're calling the shots, if you're the point of contact, you are running the investigation. Bill Thompson made the call to do IGG. You know when Payne testified and Ann Taylor asked, well, were you part of that decision? And he says, yes. Ann Taylor had to be saying to herself, wow, interesting. No, you weren't. He was nowhere CC'd on any of that IGG stuff that we have in our possession right now. So Bill Thompson, point of contact. Then the autopsies are occurring today in Spokane. Matthew is going to call their office to let them know that we need what we need specifically for major case prints. They were all about major case prints. Okay. Let me explain why. They had prints at the scene on that sliding glass door. Okay. Over on the south kitchen window. So they had the sheath, but the next biggest thing that they determined was these prints, the latent prints. But, okay, so let me explain this. I think people were confused back when this all went down that potentially when something was cleaned up and it was like, hey, we couldn't see these, but now this latent print is here type of thing. Everybody saw the south kitchen glass window. So put that out of your head that could potentially be anything what they're talking about because that was not missed on day one. Okay. When they said they went back to process the scene on the second day is when now these are the latent prints that they're talking about. And you guys, they're on the slider. They're on the sliding glass door. Okay. If the killer had gloves on, right? And which I can already tell you guys this, the prints do not match Brian Kober. They took a bunch of prints from people that they were interviewing, people that were, constantly coming in and out of that house. They got obviously the victims. They asked for Bethany and Dylan's towards the end. They were asking for Jack. They asked for Jack Showalter's. They got his. They got the Cole kid. They asked Jack Decor, and he's the one that where Darren Gilbertson's talking about, yeah, well, I don't think we're going to get them because the lawyer, when we talked to him, he said he'd get back to us, and he's never gotten back to us. Now, I don't know if they were able to right before, which would have been a trial in May or June of 2025, but item 139, I believe they were able to say, hey, are you willing to give us this so that we can exclude you so that Ann Taylor cannot use this against us? And I think Jack Decor coughed over his prints. Again, I can only speculate to that portion of it because it's redacted, but it would make sense to me. We don't want her to be saying that you weren't cooperating. Okay, well, things like that. Next. So we need specifically for major case prints and that we need DNA references. They do now have a suspect. Boom. They do now. I don't know why this woman can't write this. They do now. Remember before she couldn't get the they do not? They do now have a suspect redacted. And now this was wrote on 11/16. Okay, well here on 11/16 at 4:06 p.m. it's Janine to Jeff Talbot. Do you have the suspect's residence locked down? Are you getting a search warrant for it? Janine here sends that text message at 4:06 p.m. Rylene over here, and Janine's on this thread, CC Janine Ayers. Okay. So they do now have a suspect, comma, and then it's redacted. They are following him to get a, right here, this is how we know. They are now following him to get his serotypus DNA sample. He does have redacted all of whatever's there. I don't have a name to check, but he does have whatever. I don't have a name to check. Okay. So, I don't know. Could she be referring to Cole? Could she be referring to Jack Showalter? Could she be referring to both of them? Okay. We expect the references and major case prints along with one of the victims' fingernails, clippings, scrapings. I don't know what they will collect to be submitted tomorrow. Tina will be the person performing the processing on the sheath for latents. Tina is going to do the latents. Their evidence person is on vacation this week. Okay, that it would be Small Ridge. So I got so many questions. If this is what, unless they're talking about this Casey Macy woman. But right here it says, their evidence person is on vacation this week. Mariah, who was filling in, has been in contact with Karen, Shannon, Mickey, and Jade. She is trying her best, but their could be some things not quite right on pre-log that we will do our best to work out. What? Come again? So the 16th falls on, this is what should make people go, whoa, 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 hey. Is this Tim Smallridge? Because he delivers stuff to Meridian on 11/18. Okay. So if he's on vacation, let's take a look. The murders was on, so Sunday's 11/13. The 14th on Monday. The 15th is Tuesday. Wednesday is the 16th. Okay. If he's on vacation that week, how could he on Friday have brought anything to Boise on the 18th? You want to know where I'm getting that number from? Everything that I talked about last night. It's just all up here. Okay. So then next, Rylene writes again, and she's informing everybody at 1:19 that a D3 trooper, a D3 trooper, which is District 3 from Idaho State Police, that's the geographical location, a D3 trooper just called and said the D2 trooper just handed the knife sheath off to him. He may not be here until 5 p.m. I will wait to get it checked in. Okay. Woo, wait, what? Okay. This is the first time they've ever done this. The only piece of evidence that I can find where they used two people that, hey, I'm going to drive it to this location and then you're going to get it from me and then you can just drive it back. Okay. And that would be Trooper Tupperware. That's what I call them. It's like Super whatever. And the other one is, it's two people that have nothing to do with this case. Like their names nowhere. Like ridiculous. Anyways, now next, Rylene says at 1:28, it is not expected that we start this tonight. First thing in the morning is fine. And then at almost 4, the sheath is here. And so let's see. So 11:13, they collected it. 11:16, as you guys just saw, it was dropped off at 4. MPD has an item number for it. I can go and look really quick what it is. And then here, it's the sheath. The sheath is then going to be undergoing the wet work, which is the lab. When did the lab have it? 11/17, 2022. And then the date that sheath is written in a report is on ISP report date is 11/20, 2022. Now there's more. Okay. We're going to skip something to show you. Oh, here. Chain of custody on your sheath. I want to bring up something big here. One second. $20. Okay. Where's number 2? Here it is. We're gonna go find it's oh no. To show you how the report would look, report 4. That's where I got the date that it was written on 11/20/2022, and it has everything to do with the sheath. And then these are all the fingernail clippings, and then the extractions from. So that's what item 2 is. The DNA extracts from the items of 1. And then the DNA extracts from all of the fingernails. That's item 20. When a report is written, you're writing up your preliminary report is what came of it. Okay. And so that's where we're getting all this information about this unknown, okay, unknown male A from the sheath. But then we also find out, nobody wants to talk about this, which there is a unknown male that is mixed with Maddie and Kaylee's blood on the sheath as well. And it's not male A. Okay. Now, we are going to show now this is a list of all the items that came in. Okay. And so everything on page 1 here, items 1 through 16, everything to do with the victims except the sheath is number 1. Then this is the only thing that they could have possibly been doing over there at the lab. This is all they had. And I'm going to make it big and we're going to go so you guys can see it. Okay. Do you see number 23 and 24? This is the blood swab above the stairwell. And this is the blood swab from the upper floor banister. This is why Aunt Taylor was like, okay, these were in submission 3, which means when you're bringing when you're bringing evidence to the lab, the first submission, what did you have in it? Okay. What items did you bring on your first submission to the lab? And so next to it over here, it tells you right there. That's what you're looking at in the first submission. In the second submission, it's all of these fingernails. Okay. So you get to this third submission here. And one would ask themselves, you got this on the third submission, and it's a blood swab from above the stairwell and a blood swab from above floor banister. Within that third submission is the DNA swabs, and that's the possible finger, hand, face marks from the kitchen window, the south window. Okay. And then the stain swab bottom handrail, that's between floors 1 and 2. And then the swab of the stains on the top/edge of half wall from floor 2. See, also within the third submission here. And then here's your cigarette butt. They had 2 of them. And that actually kicks off your 4th submission. Okay. So the question is here. You're in possession of this stuff. When did it get worked on? When was it dropped off? When did you do work on it? Well, this is where we get this unknown male. Do you know what unknown male D is? Payne's like, no. Well, the handrail. Then you get the glove. And I'm like, okay, let's show the glove. That's going to be in submission 5. And this is where it was like, so submission 4 is you got your cigarette butts. Those are the DNA extracts from the cigarette butts right there, 35 and 36. Then submission 5 is the blood swabs from the entry hallway and kitchen wall. And that's just the different portions of that area. That's why it's 37.1, 37.2. Then 38, 39, 40. If there's nothing that says DNA extracts, that means that nothing was done with it. See underneath this stuff? See how there's like no DNA extracts yet? Oh, right here. 31 was. 30, what do we got? So in submission 5 then, which we know that submission 5 happened on 11/28. Okay. And remember, Rylene had an issue with this. Rylene was like, listen, we just got this stuff dropped off and it doesn't say anything. Like it just says blood swab. It doesn't say like where it was from, where it was at. It just says blood swab, and then glove. And we had, I talked to somebody and they said that the glove was, I don't know, in like the driveway or something. Again, submission 5. So those are portions of that glove. So 41 or 40.1, 40.2. That's all the glove. And now we're getting into submission 6. And that's buccal swab from redacted subject 1, 2, and 3. And then on number 7, which we know happened on 12/5, and this is a buccal swab from blank, swab from blank, buccal swab from blank, 2 swabs from blank, and then buccal swab from blank. Okay, those are redacted. And by this date here, the name that's in the computer somehow it gets in there between 11/28 and 12/25 or and 12/5 is Brian Koberger. Now, let me show you the glove. The glove fits like a glove. The glove is item 40. I'm going to print this here. So actually, I could just probably show it. I'll just show this one on the screen. This is one that they're claiming is from out in the driveway. Here's the chain of custody. So on 11/28, 7/50/29, evidence storage. Then here, 12/01, lab staff Mickey Hall. He would explain what he did. 12/01, evidence storage. So it's like he's signing in, then he's in the evidence storage locker. Then 14, or I'm sorry, then 1545 lab staff. Again, this is Stephanie Wilt, who now she's somebody that's going to work on something. That's what she does. She's a lab worker. She's going to do the wet work. Mickey Hall's like your evidence, like custodian. But Stephanie Wilt here, she's going to do some lab work. And so what it looks like to me is Stephanie Wilt is going to have to testify to, okay, on 12/1. Now remember, to do the sheath, okay, the sheath, they got that information back that it was an unknown male A. They had that back within what? Lickety split time. So here, the glove that they go to do work on, okay, the glove was found. Payne wants to try to say that it was in the middle of the driveway. And there's arguments to say that no, it was in the grass area. Okay. Well, here, I don't give a shit. But they went ahead and they did work on this. The question is here it is, 12/01 in 2022, then on 12/6/2022, evidence locker, and then 12/7, evidence storage, 12/14, looks like Mickey went back in there again, 12/14, 12/16, and then here it's released on 12/16/2022 to a courier, released to submitting agency. So they're releasing it to Moscow Police Department. Same type of write-up here that they did with the sheath when they released it. And they didn't release the sheath to Blaker. They released a portion, which was that vial. Okay. So remember, Payne testifies. This is unknown male D. Blood on a glove outside by either in the middle of the road, in the middle of the driveway or by the garbage cans. Who gives a shit? The most important part about this is, you guys, this was blood, right? So I was like, okay, well, what report is this associated with? I want to know everything about this glove. What was on the glove? Because we got Rylene over here saying, should we do Layton's and blah, blah. We'll cross that road when we get there. But let me tell you what happens here. They shut down all types of communication, meaning they stopped doing emails. I don't know if there's drop boxes out there that they'll use, so that way they can act like I didn't see it yet because it's in this drop box. But it's like they had a big old come to Jesus and, hey, we're not going to be talking. We're not going to be discussing things. We're not going to be putting things in writing anymore. But if you have nothing, right? If you have nothing, well, you have these other options here. And when I say there's other options here, it's not unknown male A. There's also the stairwell, this blood, why wasn't being tested? This could have been done by more than one person. And that's what you thought because you're thinking Cole and Jack Showalter. So what's going on here? Why wouldn't you want to test the stairwell? The banister blood. We're talking blood. And more importantly, depending on what type of transfer it is and where it was located, I thought the killer went nowhere near the banister from floor 1 to floor 2. But Payne isn't truthful here. He said we didn't know that it existed until he was trying to say like right before they had the name Brian Koberer. Okay. And I think what Ann Taylor is going to do is bop him with that and say, so clearly you were not paying attention at your meetings because they knew the name Brian Koberer at that somebody typed it in and made a name tag to Brian Koberer. It's there. And it's also interesting that somebody misspelled his name. And I'm going to look into that because I want to know if maybe they misspelled it because when they were typing in, they saw that one already existed. So maybe they're like, oh, there's got to be a typo here because it can't be the same person. How do we have this name in here? So I want to look at the date that all happened, where somebody could have been like, wait, this has to be wrong, what we're typing in after the arrest. Payne says that he didn't know that you could put more profiles into CODIS. He thought that it was only one could only be in there. Payne's acting like he is calling the shots, though. He's not calling the shots. But they, for whatever reason, had this sit down and were like, listen, you're going to say all this stuff because we're going to be able to get away with you acting like you're going to play dumb. You're a young rookie guy and blah, blah, blah. That's what I see. And we're going to hide behind that. We're going to hide behind the mistakes of, because of that. I don't know if you saw my live last night. I'm like, whoa. We have Tara Martinez is saying, where did all these names come from? All these new name tags. Where's the evidence associated with why are we creating these names in the database? Like, what's going on? She's asking the question. She realized on 12/5, between the last time they looked at it, 11/28 to 12/5, all these new subjects with a new suspect. Brian Colbert was not even listed as a subject. He was listed as a suspect. And that was printed off on 12/5 because I went and checked. I went and checked it like 5 different ways. And all of this stuff, it was what Ann Taylor was asking for. Because she says, Officer Payne, when you didn't have his name until when? They gave us his name on the 19th. That's the first time I've ever heard his name. 12/19. Ann Taylor. Okay. Ashley Jennings says, good morning, detective. I only have one question for you. She obviously can't add. Let's go back to December 19th, December 20th, and the information that was provided to the team, correct? It was a team. Yes, ma'am. Ashley Jennings says, and who all was part of this team that was receiving this information over the phone from the FBI? Answer. So there were several of us. Yourself, Mr. Thompson, and there was Darren Gilbertson from the Idaho State Police, Ed Jacobson from the FBI. I believe there were a couple other folks from the FBI and ISP in the room. I don't remember exactly who they were. And then myself. Funny. No mention of Detective Dustin Blaker. Very important. You want to know why? They're going to say that he wasn't in there. But Dustin Blaker, because he was working with Pullman. And Dustin Blaker had the name Brian Colbert, his address, his Pennsylvania license plate number on 11/25/2022. And then received another spreadsheet update from Chris Engel on 11/26 and 11/28. Would you believe it? That is literally the time frame of the tab switching between 11/28 and 12/5 to add Brian Colbert. And where that comes from is not WSU, has nothing to do with WSU. It has to do with Pullman. And Pullman Police Department, they work with the CIs, they work with, hey, let's go talk to this person, blah, blah, blah. They know who Molly and her crew were. So Ashley Jennings says, would it have been essentially the team leaders for the investigation? Yes. There were routine team discussions. Yes, ma'am. We had 2 official briefings every day of the investigation, morning and evening. So twice a day, we would all link up. And that was not just the command team. That was everyone who was not actively on an interview would come back to the police department, sit in the room, and discuss the information that we learned from that day. So it was very common throughout this investigation for us to all be in the same room and discussing the same information. Boom. Detective Payne talked a little too much with that answer because she was just trying to make it sure that we can get these, we can get the PCA to be groupthink. Okay. Well, Ann Taylor, prior to that, said, okay. She says, question, answer to Payne. How was Brian Kober the name you received as a tip linked to the case? Answer, he wasn't until after December 19th. My notes here say nada. November 25th to November 29th, he was definitely known. Question, what item of evidence did they link Brian Kober to? Answer, I'm not sure what you're asking. As far as before December 19th, is that what you're referring to? As far as before December 19th, is that what you're referring to? Before December 19th. She says, yeah. He says, we didn't have one at that point. We'll show this one more time on the screen. Real big. Okay, here you go. Hector, come on, do me a favor. Come on in. Sure, what do you need? Yep, show that. What's that date say? 12/5/2022. What do you got for me? A suspect, and then another suspect, Brian Kober. 12/5? Yeah, 12/5. It wasn't seen before that? Nope, sure wasn't. Okay, so again, we didn't have one at that point. So you're going to sit here and tell me what this means is that Detective Payne, he has no idea what other people know. Question, why did you become interested in learning the identity of Brian Kober? She asked it very specifically. Why did you become interested in learning the identity of Brian Kober? Because you already learned the identity of Brian Kober on 12/5, at least by that date. Well, Detective Payne says, not quite sure I understand your question. We were interested in anyone who would have been involved in this. The DNA from the knife sheath was obviously the one thing we had that we thought was a very strong piece of evidence in this case. So it was that particular piece that we pursued as a potential avenue of identifying a suspect. Okay, now think about what they were doing. Now that we have some of this investigation, right? Question answers, is it your understanding that the FBI's work said that it was Brian Kober's DNA on the sheath? Answer, that is not my understanding. Oh, what is your understanding? Detective Payne says, my understanding is that the FBI concluded that Brian Kober was a possible source of DNA that we should look into. They did not, to my knowledge, at any point say Brian Kober's DNA is on the knife sheath. That was never conveyed to me. Are you an absolute idiot? Are you an absolute idiot, Payne? If you are pursuing the knife sheath and that's your best evidence, what do you have on it? Do you have prints on there? No. What do you have on there? Unknown male A. What else do you have on there? This is how I would have been asking him. You have a mixture, so another unknown male? Mm-hmm. So what does all that consist of? Is that DNA? So if the FBI comes back and tells you that they want you to look into, how did you word it? You said Detective Payne. Not quite sure I understand your question. We were interested in anyone who would have been involved in this. The DNA from the knife sheath was obviously the one thing we had that we thought was a very strong piece of evidence in this case. So it was that particular piece that we pursued as a potential avenue of identifying a suspect. So you identified, according to Payne, okay, so she answers and says, is it your understanding that the FBI's work said that it was Brian Kober's DNA on the knife sheath? That is not my understanding. Well, what is your understanding? Well, my understanding is that the FBI concluded that Brian Kober was a possible source of DNA that we should look into. From where, Payne? And then she says, question, on December 20th, when that happened, when he's somebody you should look into, what did you do? Now I know why she asked this. Well, he says, answer, we had already started looking into him from the previous evening. So that day on December 20th, we began going through basically our sort of standard investigative procedures that we had been doing throughout the investigation for various leads, to include basic DMV searches, NCIC, offline returns, NCIC searches. We have a database called TLO, which is a credit-based search we use to find basic information. So we started doing all those things, looking for information on Mr. Koberger. So think about it, if that's what they normally do. You have a name, Brian Koberger, that was entered into the database on 12/5. As a suspect. What do you normally start doing? He wasn't listed as a suspect. Very, very different. Okay. So then Ann says, and what you found is that he didn't have a criminal history. Is that right? I would have asked, okay, when were the dates that you ran those reports? Is that what you did? Do you print them? Will there be a date printed on them? The fuck, Ann? So, but she says, and what you found is that he didn't have a criminal history. Is that right? He says, correct. Talk to me about going to Pennsylvania for the trash pull. Now, I want to show this to somebody, to people that maybe not have seen this yet, but it's the evidence printout. This is what they were planning on using in court. And you guys ready to get mind blown? I'll just mind blow you. Okay, here we go. Let's take a look at this. Let's zoom in. Zoomy poomy. So they had these videos. This was their, state's exhibit. So that's what S2. So state's exhibit S2-28. William Maynard video of trash pull from 119 Lamson on 11/27/2022. What? 11/27/2022 at 8:32 a.m. Now, do you think that's a typo? Because 11/27 is November. They did a trash pull on 12/27, according to what we've always been told. Is there any chance that there was an 11/27 trash pull? Or are we going to sit here and say that they just completely, because I want to show you this other section. This falls under States Exhibit 1, which are photographs. Okay, these are photographs. And these photographs now in this totally different section, which is States Exhibit. The other one was a video. This is the States Exhibit 1 section, which is the photographs. And here, the photographs, they say Pennsylvania, still shot of Kohlberger at 4:11 on 12/27. Pennsylvania, 4 black garbage bags from 1119. Okay. Because I always wondered how the hell did they get all this trash? All right. Also, ready? So over here, they list this as 12. They have a screenshot of Kohlberger on 12/16/2022 facing forward. Screenshot of Brian Kohlberger on 12/16 2022 facing window. Because they went and got, now these are Indian Mountain Lake surveillance cameras. So these are not, they're not taking pictures. Okay. They went to the little hut people that have this little HOA and, hey, we need to see your surveillance cameras, blah, blah, blah. Okay. But let's go back to now. Could they have potentially done 2 of them? Could they have done a trash pull on 11/27, and they did one on 12/27 against. I always wondered how the heck they could get this this information so quickly, which would have come back as not a match because you're looking at male E is not male A. But ready for this? 12/5/2022, Brian Kohlberger is 150% still in Washington. 12/5/2022 is literally the day after they were watching Jack Showalter from 12/3 and 12/4. They did surveillance of him. They had 7 to 8 dudes following that kid all through Boise. And then 12/5, this really strange and random entry. And then 12/6, they have the final interview that they do with Jack Showalter to get him to give up his prints and his DNA. And then so we have from 12/5. And if you go back before that, they actually knew, Dustin Blaker and them knew on 11/25 that Dustin Blaker's the same guy that drove the sheath and flew with it. Okay. But Dustin Blaker is the same person that's being all evasive with his reporting, not writing reports up for like weeks, months, years later. And sometimes didn't even write a report on the things he was doing, not having like listing, a couple weeks into this, I was doing X, Y, and Z. Really bizarre stuff. Not wanting to make mention that he was hanging out and doing stuff with the Pullman Police Department, which we know that they go in those Facebook groups and buy fentanyl and whatever else through CIs. So going back to this questioning then, Ann Taylor says, let's talk about that trash pull. Again, I want to keep this up here for the date purpose. 12/25 or 12/5. Trash pull. He's like, well, I was not in Pennsylvania for the trash pull. She says, okay, I'll ask somebody else that later. All right. So after you receive Brian Kohlberger's name and he hasn't been on your radar at all before, is that correct? So she gets him to say it again. He hasn't been at all on your radar. He says, correct. He has not been on your radar at all before. Is that correct? Correct. All right. You had pursued interviews and surveillance video. Had you pursued evidence found inside the scene at 1122 King? Yes, ma'am. Question. What efforts did you make to pursue unknown male B? He says you have to be more specific. I don't remember exactly where unknown male B came from. She says, if I told you the lab report showed unknown male B came from a blood spot on the handrail going between the second and the first floor, does that help jog your memory? Okay. So then we go back to what I just had out here. Item 30 from report 3, or from the third submission. Handrail between floor 1 and floor 2. Why this is important is the killer supposedly has there should be nothing on, the handrail of the banister that's going from the bottom floor 1 up to the second floor. Okay. All right. He says, oh, yes. Yes, ma'am. After you just said that, does that help jog your memory? Yes, ma'am, he says. Question. Why did you not pursue that person? Answer. At that point in time, we had already received Mr. Kohlberger's name. This is why I'm really good, and that's why I cannot believe that nobody takes me up on my offers to help them with putting shit together. Dude, right there, I knew I would know that I have him hook, line, sink, because this all matters on this date. He says, at that point in time, because she didn't say to him, when did they find that unknown on the rail, right? He has no idea because he's a fucking moron. He doesn't know that. Dude, he went and took a fucking drive around and retraced the steps and doesn't even know how the killer made a 3-point turn. Doesn't know that the killer didn't turn the way that he did it. Okay. No details here from this man. But his answer was, at that point in time, we had already received Mr. Kohlberger's name. And from what my understanding was, entering another DNA profile into CODIS would remove the previous one we had from the knife sheath. That has absolutely nothing to do with shit. CODIS has nothing to do with your case and what you have as the DNA extract for the sheath for unknown male A. You can't be this dumb. Okay, or you can be, but why do they have this job? But this answer, Ann Taylor is probably like, what the fuck are you talking about? But she's prepared for it. But he says, so if memory serves, the discussion was, we'll hold off. We'll stay with one from the knife sheath. If we need to, we can address the unknown male B at a later time. And he's over here thinking, well, we want to put it into CODIS because we're trying to see if it will get a hit, right? To see if we can get the identity of that person's DNA. Wait a second, you idiot. You have all of these samples that you've been going out to all these friends, boyfriends, you would want to compare, right? And the only way that you can compare is if it actually is worked on to create the extract, to create a profile, right? It does no good. If you go out and collect, Moscow goes out and collects, I don't know, 700 people's DNA. Just so we're clear, just because they went and that person gave them their DNA, it does not mean that it was then sent and immediately high-horsed it to Boise, which is a 4 to 5 hour drive, by the way, and worked on and blah, blah, and that's what was happening over there. Nothing of the sort happened like that. Okay? So the point of this, though, is Payne over here thinks that we did not pursue that person because at that point in time, which we now know the dates for this, he's over here saying that we did not pursue this handrail unknown male D because we had already had Brian's name. He told on himself without telling on himself. Yes, you did, Payne, and that's why on 12/5 we see we see Brian Kohlberger's name in there, don't we? Let me continue. Anne says, question, I want to make sure I understand your testimony. No shit. Now we know why she says this. I want to make sure I understand your testimony. Were you not aware of unknown male B until after December 19th when you knew Brian Kohlberger's name? Because that's what one would think, right? So think about this. She says, I want to make sure I understand your testimony. Were you not aware of unknown male B until after December 19th when you knew Brian Kohlberger's name? He says, no, ma'am. I was aware of that before, yes. So then he says, no, I was aware of unknown male B before I heard Brian Kohlberger's name. First question. Why did you not pursue? If I told you the lab report showed unknown male B came from a blood spot on the handrail going between the second and the first floor, does that help jog your memory? Yes, ma'am. Why did you not pursue that person? She decided to ask Payne these questions and fuck with them. Payne doesn't know this because Payne wasn't the person that was handling this portion of it. But he has to act like it because they all told each other everything supposedly, but they weren't. That's not what was fucking happening. They weren't all telling each other everything. That's the part that's the lies. Okay. He says, well, at that point in time, we had already received Mr. Kohlberger's name. And from what my understanding was, entering another DNA profile into CODIS would remove the previous one we had from the knife sheath. That was a planned piece of testimony right there. This is how you're going to say it. This is how you're going to testify to this. So if memory serves, the discussion was, hold off. We'll stay with the one from the knife sheath. If we need to, we can address the unknown male B at a later time. And then she says, I want to make sure I understand your testimony. Are you sitting here testifying that you were not aware of unknown male B until after December 19th? And now he got crossed up there. And he says, no, ma'am, I was aware of that before. Yes. Well, that's not what you just testified to. You testified to that we did not pursue that person because at that point in time, we had already received Mr. Kohlberger's name. So then you're saying that the name Brian Kohlberger came before the unknown male B. Do you understand? That's what it means. It means whatever date they drew up the report, okay, for the handrail, whatever date that came back of the wet work, fuck the date of your report. When was the wet work completed? And so that you would know that you have another unknown male in that house and it's blood and it's a single source. Someone's bleeding in your crime scene, okay? And it's on the first floor banister, going from floor 1 to floor 2. What's the date of the wet work? And that means that you had Brian Kohlberger's name before that date. You fucking sick fucks. That's what that means. And that's why she says, I want to make sure I understand your testimony. Because this stuff was going to be used against them in trial. Now, he says, or then Ann Taylor says, question, how about unknown male D? So B is the banister blood. Now, how about unknown male D, which is the glove? Which I just showed you guys that they would have had that back on 12/7, 12/6, potentially 12/1 because of when Stephanie worked on it. And how do I know this? Because I'll pull this back up. Stephanie worked on it on 12/1. Stephanie is the, so this is your item 40, is the suspected bio-stained clothing glove. Okay. Blood. Tested. Unknown male D is this item. And now we know that It was worked on 12/1 by Stephanie. Then they're doing something with the evidence locker room or the locker with this item on 12/6. So you have to say between 12/1 and 12/6, which guess what? 12/5's in there, isn't it? That's you would know this. So the date of the report though is on I don't. So he says, how about, or she says, Payne is asked by Ann Taylor, how about unknown male D? Again, you're going to have to be more specific, he says. If I told you unknown male D came from a lab report from a sample of blood on some gloves outside the house, does that refresh your memory? Yes, ma'am, it does. Question. You're aware of that too? Yes, ma'am. Unknown male mixed with Kaylee and Maddie's blood on the sheath, not Brian Colbert's. Unknown male B on the railing of floor going from 1 to 2 the banister, which the killer supposedly never went over there. Should be no blood, no nothing. Should be anywhere in and around, let alone that it's a male unknown. And then the gloves outside, male unknown D. You're aware of that too? Mm-hmm. And how he testified is that they knew Brian Kohlberger's name before this, and they chose to stay with it, keep the sheath there, and not put these other two people in CODIS. Okay. Then she says, well, I want to back up and talk about the affidavit. I think you told me in a prior hearing that you were the person that wrote Exhibit A, or the affidavit in support of the search warrants, when it came to looking for things about Brian Kohlberger. Did I understand that correctly? He says, yes. Yes, ma'am. She says, and that affidavit, when you began, was that on December 23rd to get records? As far as when I started writing the affidavit, is that what you're referring to? Okay, question. The first search warrant that applied to Mr. Kohlberger, what's the date? I believe it was December 23rd. Now let's back up. Do you guys remember Molly's interview? Molly's interview said that she could not remember if the plates that she saw were Idaho or Washington. Okay, from the tan sedan that she saw driving past her. Okay. Brian Kohlberger had Pennsylvania tags on that car. She's over here talking about Idaho and Washington. She's also over here getting everything completely wrong with when she's saying she's doing what. Why and how do we know that? And how the police should have known this is because they had the luxury of having 1112 camera. They had that luxury. They also had the sounds coming from 1112 camera from King Road. They also had Linda Lane camera footage. Mark B did a quick little video, another one. It's great. I can play it here at the end. But if you want to see Molly's testimony, or I should say her statements to the police, and we've broken it down. I cannot tell you how many times on this channel. Molly is full of shit. Molly is absolutely full of shit. And Molly says something that if you guys can remember the McStay case, the case out of California. Chase Merritt was arrested when they would eventually find the McStays, the two little kids and the parents in the shallow graves in the Mojave Desert. I believe that he was wrongfully convicted. Of course, Lana, of course you do. Well, I only cover cases that I feel that way. Well, there's issues. I'm not going to sit here and cover cases and tell people, hey, way to do your job. That's not my channel. My channel is to point out and to keep people honest, and bring eyes to things that are unjust or questionable. So with that case, Chase Merritt did a interview, and it would have been, because it was a missing persons case for like, I couldn't tell you how long, a couple years. And when they interviewed Chase Merritt, I can't remember if it was Dateline or whoever, 2020, whatever did it originally, they asked him a question, and he just makes a comment, and he says, "Oh yeah, no, I was for sure the last people to see them." Okay. He had a business meeting with the McStay, Joseph, or Joey, and he had a meeting with him earlier that day. And by the time that this interview had happened, which was so long after, he's already spoken to police. He's been, doing everything, blah, blah. He does this interview for, I think it was the ID channel as well. And he makes that comment. And do you know that they use that comment? And that's what they used literally to seal up his fate and being convicted. Now, if the same was to hold true with Molly McMichael, then the statement that she tells investigators should literally blow your fucking gasket. She says she should have no reason to know anything, as far as we were all told that this happened between 2 and 3. Then it was between 3 and 4. Okay. Here, Molly, in her interview, she says something along the lines of that she can't believe that she's there when this is happening. Molly got there at 3:45. Okay. Molly left supposedly, allegedly, just because her app leaves and her phone leaves, but Molly's app and phone arrive at 3:46. And what we see, or her vehicle, and 4:01. Well, based on what Molly's saying here, we never told Molly that. She said that to investigators on 11/23 and before that. Dude, at that point in time, there was nobody talking about that this happened at that time. In fact, if you read some articles, they're talking about between 2:15 and 3 o'clock. They're talking about 2:30. Anyways, the way that Molly answers questions and saying that she's there, she should be saying things like, well, when this is what time it came through on my phone. Why does she think that the murders are happening when she's there? That's like almost like you have some type of knowledge. You'd be asking the question, oh my God, when did this happen? What do you mean? Well, I was there at this time. Like, when did this happen? Nope. Molly says that she can't believe it's her luck that this is happening when she's there. I can't believe that's not being made a bigger deal. What's happening when you were there? And then why is she saying that she hurry up, ran out of her car, jumped out of her car, put the bag down, and then everything's about like driving quickly away, getting quickly away and getting out of there. Bizarre. But it makes me think about the Chase Merritt comment on, yep, I was definitely the last person to see him alive. Well, Chase Merritt said that all that time later in that interview, because Chase Merritt, they're all talking to each other. And yeah, I guess I'm the last person that saw him at the business meeting that happened at 2 or 3. Everybody else, it was, when he had left, there was phone calls or whatever on his phone. And then he's like, he called me that night. I just didn't answer. I was watching a movie. And they're saying that, nope, Chase, this is what's crazy about it, is that Chase used the dude's phone to call his own phone. Dude, that's some fucking conspiracy shit, right? But we talk about it. The prosecution presented this literally to the jury. And I'm over here like, how the fuck are they getting away with this? Because God forbid, if I was to make comments like that, I'm a conspiracy theorist. Holy shit. Wow, that's crazy. mind blowing. Anyways, long story short, Chase Merritt didn't have a geolocation specialist. Had he had one, the jury would have actually found him not guilty because so much stuff has come out. He needs somebody like a Cy. Anyways, going back to this, Ann Taylor wants the date of this first search warrant, the 23rd. Okay. I began writing that affidavit long before that. He says it had been a running affidavit because at the beginning of it, there's the walkthrough of the crime scene. There's numerous things. It was a living document. So we just add information to it. Is that a fact? Let me show you how I would blow him up in court with this. You guys do know that Mitch Noonans wrote an affidavit, the original one, to kick off this whole case. Ready? Well, let me just introduce you guys to Mitch Noonan's search warrant. That is still out there on November 19th, 2022. If this picture, look at that. Those are the blankets that the kids were stepping on. Isn't that crazy? They just left that there. Can't believe nobody picked that up to get potential DNA. This is Jeff Talbot's text messages with Janine Ayers. Here we go. Permission to fingerprint. See this 6/21/2024? That's somebody that they needed cooperation from because of what Ann was doing. Okay. So December 1st, 2022. Hi, Derek. ISPFS is working through a quadruple homicide case with an unknown suspect. We have one latent print that was developed from the scene with amino black that we would like to have searched against the DOJ civil files, if possible. Please request authorization for us to submit this print for searching. This was, and this is where I'm going to leave it off with. I'm going to leave it off with you guys coming back. I'm going to show you guys Noonan's search warrant. Okay, when you want to talk about like entering the house and writing all that stuff, and this was just a live working document. I'm going to show you that clearly it wasn't because you took nothing from what Noonan's did. But we're going to leave it here with this. They were spending so much time on the prints, okay? And this print basically is not him, it's not Brian Colbert, it's somebody else. But they were tracking this down, and it was a big part of the investigation. Okay, and this would also be that it was wiped down. So it goes backwards. So when you start like that, then you're like, good morning, Haley. I've attached our case submission form. Please complete and return via email with the digital images that you would like us to search. I have included, Lori or our property controller. So going through all of this. I have also attached an image of the Latin print that we needing search, which is the L5. Look into that documentation if you guys are following this case. The image is uncalibrated and saved as a TIF file. Please let me know if you need any additional information or images. We have searched this latent through several databases, including FBI and the Cal DOJ records that we are able to access through NEC. So a civil search is what we are needing. But if you have any other databases available to search, please utilize those as well. December 1st. Really interested. Really interested. March 20th. This is when Ann Taylor, or this is March 24th. Never mind. 2024. Tara, this email will serve as permission for you to transport the exemplars you are collecting this Friday. Darren Gilbertson, D2, has scheduled blank for tomorrow, Friday, 3/29/2024 at 10 a.m. for exemplar collection. Because Ann Taylor's over here like, you didn't even go get these people's shit. What are you doing? Oh, here it is. Good afternoon, Jeff and Janine. Janine Ayers, Jeff Talbot. This is CCing Bill Thompson, and this is Darren Gilbertson asking on July 2nd, 2024. Did either one of you or your team members process the kitchen sink or sink traps at the blank residence? Neither Brett nor I can remember specifically what we did regarding the sinks. I wonder why you can't remember. Why don't you look into, I don't know, watching your videos? Specifically the kitchen sink. Why? Oh. Just reply to all of us with what you did regarding this process. Well, we examined all areas and we would have only gotten into a sink or drain if we found something, says Janine. I saw the hair in the drain, so we documented it and collected it. If any of us had found anything of interest in any of the other sinks, we would have documented and collected those as well. Now, we call bullshit because based off of what the first responding Moscow Police Department was looking at those, and Corbin Smith is over here saying, yeah, it looks like there's blood in the sink, kitchen sink. And actually Gunderson agrees. Other people are agreeing. And it's like, Janine's the same person that's having weird texting communications with Jeff Talbot. Like, do you want me to get you some Dr. Mountain Dew? Will zero work? And then I just, Janine's like, trust me, if we would have seen something, we would have done something. This is on day one. This is the processing the scene. Like, what do you mean? If I would have looked around that house, okay, and I would have thought that something actually was cleaned up in the bottom bathroom because there's like nothing in there. Then with everybody saying, I want to know if there was any type of communication, these dudes on the body cam, Moscow Police Department is saying that there's blood in the sink. Then you're spraying the whole thing with whatever the fucking shit you used. But here, trust me, I would have been like, I can review my notes. Or how about this? Why don't you go look at the videos? Go look at the videos. You guys are recording with video. This was sent July 2nd at 6:03 p.m. July 3rd at 8:17 a.m. We examined all areas and would have only gotten into a sink or a drain if we found something. What does that even mean? How would you be able to find something in a drain, in the drain, sink, pipe, all that crap? I saw the hair in the drain, so we documented it and collected it. If any of us had found anything of interest in any of the other sinks, we would have documented and collected those as well. We did test red-brown stains in the kitchen in the area of the sink, but I think most of them were presumptive negative. Most of them. Most of them. Not all of them. I think most of them. You would have said, I think all of them were. Because if anything over there was presumptive positive, any stains in the apartment now she's talking about the apartment. Any stains in the apartment that were presumptive positive were collected. In the kitchen, we definitely did not pull apart the pipes under the sink, the U-trap, but the sink itself was examined. I hope this answers your question. Let me know if you need any more information. And let me just explain something to you guys. Just because something was examined, it depends on who did the examination. I don't care. So, what do you guys think? Turning it on over to you. Ed says all the plumbing in 1122 should have been taken and analyzed. I agree. Oh, Detective Mallory says mom's spaghetti. Why would there be blood anywhere in home unless something happened? Juries are very unpredictable. Yes, I agree. Would you decide to plea 1 week before your trial starts or a month or whatever it was? I would, especially if you're a killer. Think about it. Thoughts, more thoughts. What do you guys think? Put a 1 in chat if you think that they had Brian Kober's name. Obviously before 12/5. I believe we're looking at something. It's going to come down to though how the name, Ann Taylor and her team said it best. The FBI gave you 7 charts. 7 charts. Why are you only going and seeking out white Elantras? When did you determine that it was a white Elantra out of the 7 charts that the FBI gave you that it could be a possible vehicle from the Ridge Road camera? The Ridge Road camera came back. There's 7 make and models that could potentially be. I mean, I think that this is pretty conclusive. Ann Taylor says, help me understand what parts were added after you knew Mr. Kober's name, since this was a working document. Well, to walk down the line best I can. So obviously there's the initial component, which is the crime scene, the testimony from the roommates. He calls it testimony. Then after that, it shifts to, I believe the first mention of, or the first component was that Brian Kober was pulled over by Corporal Duke on a traffic stop. He was also contacted by he was also contacted by WSU police. His vehicle was ran by WSU police officers. After that, we included trying to walk down, like he doesn't even know, trying to walk down through without the thing in front of me. Yeah, try it. You should know this case at the back of your head. You should know this case actually like the palm of your hand, because we don't know the back of our heads. But I don't need that piece of paper in front of me. I need that piece of paper in front of me. What the fuck are you talking about, man? And after that, we included his residence and that he had LPRs, license plate readers, or his vehicle had been seen on license plate readers between Moscow or Pullman, and Pennsylvania. And then there was a component about where he lived in Pennsylvania. And Sarah says, let's go back to the time before you started adding the traffic stop. That affidavit contains some information that you gained from other officers. Isn't that right? Yes, ma'am. Okay. And you didn't write large parts of that affidavit. Is that also right? I took a lot of the language from experts and other officers and agents. That's correct. Are you aware your affidavit, your living document, was claimed by other people as their own document, not giving you credit, but claimed as their own? Are you aware of that? Yes, ma'am. Cuck. And you are aware of that. You probably know because Nicholas Balance was co-located with you. Did the two of you continually work on the language to satisfy what the prosecutor wanted to see for probable cause? Yes, ma'am. Why? I mean, Ashley Jennings is right there. She's writing up the search warrants too. Did you and Nicholas Balance produce a map to show a possible route of travel for your suspect? Yes, ma'am. Okay, detective. I'm going to attempt to put this map up here. Is that the map you and Nicholas Balance came up with to help with probable cause? Yes, ma'am. Thank you. I'm going to leave that there for just a minute. I'm going to ask you some other questions. You know what that map's from, right? Tisk tisk. This shit would have blown up, man. She says, let's go to the part of your affidavit for December 23rd, AT&T won. The part where you put in things particular to Brian Kober. You put in that affidavit a traffic stop, I believe, from August in Moscow, Idaho. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. That traffic stop was that on your radar before December 19th when you learned of Brian Kober's name. No, ma'am. The next thing you relied on was a traffic stop at WSU. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. Was that traffic stop on your radar before you knew of Brian Kober's name on December 19th? No, ma'am. You put in information about front license plates being missing from Pennsylvania cars. Is that right? Yes, ma'am. On the 1112 video did not show enough of the vehicle that you could see whether it had a front license plate. Is that right? That sounds correct. So it was after you learned of Brian Kober's name that became part of your affidavit. Isn't that right? Yes, ma'am. Let's talk about the vehicle identification for a minute before I run back down through the rest of that affidavit after Brian was identified. When you worked with Special Agent Immel to identify a vehicle, was there more than one vehicle he identified? Answer: I don't believe there was. Are you fucking kidding me? He identified 7. He gave them a chart like, here, this type of car. Here, 7 different ones. It's in his report. I don't believe there was. If memory serves, it was just the Hyundai Elantra. That had to have blown Anne's mind. Question: would you agree that he was most comfortable with the years 2011 to 2013? Ms. Jennings: objection, Your Honor, for the same reasons. I don't understand the scope related to IGG. Your Honor, I'm going to ask for a little leeway on this one. I think it will be clear in about 2 more questions. It is a sealed proceeding. I'll be arguing it at Frank's. Ms. Taylor says, they looked for a 2011 to 2013. It was their BOLO. It was after Brian was identified by IGG, they expanded the search. And the court say, that relates to what? It's going to relate to Frank's, but it has to do with IGG and when they identified him. I have about 2 more questions along this line. Court says, you have the separate Frank's motion regarding the scope of the car search. Absolutely, she says. She says, Hippler says, I get the idea that if the IGG is suppressed, the warrants based on IGG is suppressed. That affects a lot of other things, right? But I don't think you need to get into the evidence of that at this point because it's part of the that's separate, Frank's motion. She says, there absolutely is. The next question I'm going to get to in the affidavit after the IGG was the police in Pullman running the car. Boom, Lana! Fucking told ya. Blaker, this is 1-9 Blaker. Are you over there in Pullman? You working with them drug CIs? You over there turning tricks with them Facebooks, stalking hookers? Right there, boom. I get the idea that she says, the next question I'm going to get to in the affidavit after the IGG was the police in Pullman running the car. And he has laid it out in the affidavit after the IGG without stating it. So I'm doing the IGG part with him now. That car is a different year than the one that the BOLO is for. That's as far as I'm going with the car at this hearing. Counsel, and then Jennings says, I don't understand what that has to do with the IGG. It's part of a Frank's hearing related to vehicle identification. I understand her timeline, But I think that point has already been made. No, it has not. The timeline has not been made. Not to my standards. Taylor says, this was when I was allowed to explore this witness since he's already here and we've paid for him to come here. The court, yeah, but I didn't open up everything to Frank's because we couldn't get into all the other things that I understood we would get into the entirety of Frank's on IGG, which is why I allowed it. And that's what we're going to stick to today. Ms. Taylor says, IGG flows. It makes everything. Well, I'm not suggesting we get into other Frank's issues that sprung in part from IGG because those are separate based. And that's where Ann Taylor messed up. None of this should have been done separately. Everything's together. It should have been one big suppression motion. Okay? Because everything flows from IGG. Everything. Or did they hide behind IGG? Because they could never tell the real way that they got to motherfucking Brian Kohlberger. And we'll be back with that. Because that's what I want to talk about. Okay? If you're entering the name Brian Kohlberger on 12/5 or before that, between 11/28 and 12/5 into a database that is Idaho State Police Lab, that you are typing in name tags, and you put in the name Brian Kohlberger between 11/28 and 12/5, who did it? There was no IGG back at that point, allegedly, supposedly. But more importantly, did you hide behind IGG because you couldn't talk about the real way that you got to Brian Kohlberger? Which that's when we would be getting into these sus motherfuckers. Okay? The Mollies of the world. We'll see you soon. Much love. Keep it flowing.